My first question for you is, did you know that Carla was in the middle of the Girls Alliance and what Ryan and Gio had going?
Okay. I knew that she was talking to them. I honestly thought her perspective was, let me talk with Ryan and Gio and get information from them and then bring it back to us. I was grateful for that because I really wanted to play a loyal game. I'm a terrible liar. So I wouldn't have been able to play both sides in that instance. Ryan and I had a great relationship out there. Gio and I had a great relationship out there. And I respected and valued them. So if Carla was willing to do the dirty work in terms of playing both sides, then like, let her do that. My strategy going into the game, it was pretty loose. You know, I always compare strategy and Survivor to a birth plan. Like they're great to have, but they're totally unrealistic, right? Like you need to be there and in the moment and going through that experience before you kind of, you figure out what you're doing. I'm really good at adapting and I call it like my bob and weave, but, and I get that from being a nurse. You know, when I'm walking into people's rooms, I have no idea what's about to happen, right? So I kind of took that approach into the game of Survivor. What I wanted to do was, I didn't have to be the one that was making all the big moves, but I did want to have all the information. For example, I didn't necessarily need to find the idols and go after the advantages. I needed to know who had them and how I was going to play the game based off of that information.
Right. I love Coco, by the way. It's
Thank you.
My favorite.
Look, I got my little cocoa beans right here. Are they cute?
Yes. The one downside for you guys winning, though, was that we really didn't get to learn as much. So it was very interesting in this last episode that we got to see the dynamic that apparently Gio's rubbing people the wrong way, but you said you had a good relationship with him. So one of my questions is, did you see any of the interactions where you're like, okay, there's a little friction there, maybe he's at the bottom of this or anything like that?
Yeah. So unfortunately, Gio was always at the bottom. You know, Gio was on day one, we threw out Gio's name and that was kind of how we went, which made it kind of easy for us to coast through and not have to talk so much strategy. How many different times can you walk to the water well and say, are we still good? It's Gio, it's Gio. So while we were all eager to play the game in terms of strategy, it's hard out there. It's hard living on a beach, right? And so I took it as, okay, we already know who our first vote's going to be. Like, let me use this time to build our shelter so we're not cold and getting wet. Let me use this time to figure out how to find food. Let me get my social game really strong. So at that point, I was like, okay, my social game is strong. My physical challenge game is strong. I was doing great in both those aspects. We just didn't have enough time, or we had all the time. There was just, we didn't really need to strategize that much.
Yeah.
But I'm sad that you guys didn't get to see our tribe dynamic. We had so much fun out there. We had such amazing conversations. We would lay awake at night in our shelter and play Never Have I Ever. And we would all share our stories with each other and our motivation for being out there. Yeah. And I'm sad that you guys didn't get to see that.
Why was it immediately Gio at the bottom?
Two reasons. One, I sadly can't talk about right now. It's not my story to tell, and I want Gio to be able to tell that story. But number two, during the marooning challenge, Gio was very adamant about doing the running portion of the challenge. And when he didn't do well, my concern was that maybe he wasn't self-aware in terms of like what his strengths were and what his weaknesses were. I needed to keep Ryan for challenge strength. I needed to keep James because I really, really wanted to work with James. And there was no way that I was going to write down Carla and Cassidy's name once I told them that I'd be willing to work with them. So by default, it left Gio as the vote. And he was the easy vote. It was, everyone agreed with it. Nobody was fighting it. So we just went with it.
You're saying it was the easy vote. But then your paranoia took over, and for some reason, you really didn't want to believe that it was Gio. Yeah, what was that? Was it really just that sometimes that's what the game is, or was it something else that was like kind of lighting that paranoia in you?
Yeah. I never got paranoid until Gio and I had a conversation on the beach, maybe 3 hours before we're going to tribal council. And Gio said, Lindsay, I hate to do this to you, but your name's being thrown out there and it's going to be you going home tonight. And I said, I'm sorry, what? Because I knew that Ryan and Gio, they had wanted Cassidy to go home since the beginning. So I knew that Cassidy was always going to be the vote. And I said, Gio, why? Why me? And he said, well, Ryan says that you're a threat in the game. And again, that was a huge red flag for me, especially because out of all the people in the game, Ryan was talking strategy the least. Ryan's mentality was like, why are we talking strategy when we're not going to tribal council? Let's keep this positivity train going. There's no need to talk strategy until there's a need to talk strategy. However, I knew that Ryan was talking strategy. When we go to confessionals, when everyone's off having conversations, you talk, everybody talks. So I knew that Ryan was talking to people. It just wasn't me. So that was definitely a red flag. And so that's where kind of my paranoia started to set in.
Interesting. I have so many questions, but I feel like that's going to be
ask.
No. So how do you feel that despite multiple girls' alliances being formed in this season, it's only been women being voted out this first 4 weeks?
I want to be able to say, I try to be very careful with this because, and I've actually had conversations with Jeff and my casting over this conversation about why it's so difficult for women, including older women, to win this game. And at the end of the day, we're the ones doing it to ourselves, right? I definitely think that these tough challenges play a huge role in it. I'll be the first to admit I wasn't willing to even write Ryan's name down until we got closer to the merge because we needed Ryan. You can see that we needed Ryan in those challenges. And that's an incredibly frustrating place to be in because there were moments where I thought to myself, all right, Ryan and Gio are voting for Cassidy. I don't want Cassidy to go home, but I'm also not willing to get rid of Ryan. I'm not willing to get rid of James. And that puts you in a really tough position to be in. I also wanted to make sure coming out of the gate as an older woman that I am an asset in challenges and not a liability. I think I had trouble finding that balance because I was so hell bent on making sure that I wasn't a liability that it almost put a target on my back. Which you didn't get to see in the show is how much we were doing around camp. I mean, our shelter, there was one storm we had one night, 45-mile-an-hour winds, and our shelter completely toppled over. And we really needed strength out there to be able to put the shelter back in place. Bamboo. I underestimated how difficult it would be to cut bamboo. Ryan was one of the few people on that beach that could cut that bamboo. We needed him. So I think that plays a huge part in people going home. I didn't go home because I'm a woman. I know that. And so it's hard for me, while I'm disappointed that 4 women have gone home, it's really difficult for me to read into that narrative because that wasn't the reason why I got sent home.
Yeah, your reason is different. It was kind of tiring to hear the first 3. Got to keep this tribe strong. Got to keep the tribe strong. Get it? Okay, so if you're putting yourself in Carla's position instead, and you are between, you have a women's alliance. One of them doesn't seem to be trusting you for some reason. I mean, tribal council is the only way to really build that trust. So I could see one avenue of they keep you and hopefully that's it. You never have paranoia again. You've been through it. Or like they said, this could be a liability. This is hard to work with. Cut the person loose. What are you doing in that position?
Carla deserves more credit than what she's getting. Carla didn't vote me out because I was paranoid. Carla voted me out for two reasons. Number one, she saw me as a huge threat, and she was worried that once the merge hit, that I would either go on individual immunity runs, that she saw the social game that I was playing out there. She knew how personable and sociable that I was. She was really concerned with that. But she was also playing both sides. And when she saw Gio and I talking on the beach that day, and she realized that Gio was giving me information, all of a sudden she was worried about her game. Gio and Lindsay are about to figure out that I'm playing both sides. There was a conversation that Gio and I had on the beach where Gio threw out James' name. And it was such a joke. Gio knew I was coming for him. I knew he was going for Cassidy. And yet here we are having this conversation like, James is the vote tonight. Yeah, you're going to vote James. I'm going to vote James. And it was a joke. I mean, it was such a ridiculous conversation. However, the important part of that conversation was Gio said, well, I need to go talk to Carla and solidify that. And I said, don't worry about it. I got Carla. Like, Carla and I are working together. Don't waste your time. I'm about to go talk to Carla anyway. I'll just tell her the vote's James. And that set off a red flag to Gio. And so Gio and Carla are having this conversation. Carla's starting to freak out because she's like, things are getting messy. Carla was having a really hard time keeping her lies in place. And so in order for Carla to save her game, she needed to get rid of me. And that's what she did. It was a very smart move on Carla's part. My tribe deserves credit for it. The part that I hate is that everybody thinks that it was because I was paranoid, and that's not it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But then I'm still wondering, yeah, if I'm choosing between you or Gio, I'm getting rid of Gio. Because it sounds like Gio's the messier player. Like I'm still even questioning if someone threw out your name to begin with, or he did that maybe to sow a seed of like paranoia, because even if James is now in the mix and you knew that was never the case, I don't know. I just still wonder about the decision.
Cassidy and Carla had a conversation a few days in on the boat in the middle of the water when they were by themselves about me and about me being a threat in the game. And Cassidy was very hesitant to have that conversation with Carla because she didn't know at that point if that information would get back to me. But I think that's kind of where the seed was planted. My frustration is I am a loyal player. Like in a game where you can't trust anybody, like you can trust me. I think for me, until you can go to the first tribal council and really figure out like who you can trust and who you can't trust, I underestimated people's ability to trust me. I naturally thought that everybody would trust me, and they didn't. I wanted to say to Carla and Cassidy, like, I am a strong player. I am social. I am good at challenges. I'm great around camp, and I'll be strategic. I know this game inside and out. They knew that I knew the game inside and out. I didn't want them to see it as a threat, though. I wanted it to be empowering, and I wanted them to be like, Lindsay is a great person to work with. Like, we're going to take her to the end. And then at the end, like, every man for themselves, like, we'll come after each other. But unfortunately, they didn't see it that way.
Do you still have Carla's earring that she gave you in exchange of the bead for the immunity aisle? I don't.
I can't tell you what I did with it, but it was cold and it was mean, and I can't wait for you guys to find out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Is there anything we didn't see in that negotiation with Cody? Because that was a very interesting.
Yes. And I'm glad you asked that. Thank you for asking. One of the concerns that I had, I really wanted to trust James in this game. He was he's one of my favorite people in the entire world. I absolutely love him. He was my jungle James out there. And he was always telling me the truth, but I know Philly, and I know men like him from Philly, and I knew he wasn't playing a quiet game. James is an incredibly smart human being, and he deserves credit for the social game that he was playing out there, which unfortunately you guys aren't seeing. But James came back after the journey and told us that he didn't risk his vote. And I didn't necessarily believe that. So when Cody came to do the raid, I decided to bring up that journey just to see what Cody's take was on it and see how much Noelle had told him. And so when Cody started talking about it, James got really weird and kind of shut the conversation down. And at first I thought, wait, is it just me? Am I reading into James's response? But after talking to Carla and Cassidy, they both thought it was really strange too. So that was a huge red flag for me. And one of the reasons why I didn't necessarily trust James in that moment.
Interesting.
Yes.
Cody walked away with food and fishing gear. Carla said that everyone was bad at negotiating and basically got taken advantage of. Did you feel that way after Cody left?
I don't really care. If I'm being completely honest, I did not want my machete to be taken away. I know I'm not good at negotiating. I'm a really great nurse. I'm a great mom. I'm a great friend. I'm a great wife. Like, I'm not good at negotiating. I will give you everything if you ask for it. I'm a compassionate human being. I hate seeing people struggle. So when we were on the mats during challenges, I mean, there was one moment where one of the other tribe members said, we've eaten nothing but coconut for 7 days. And my heart just broke. Like, I know what I'm like when I'm hangry, and it is not a cute look. So luckily you guys did not see hangry Lindsay on that island, because it would have been like completely different. But I felt for them in that moment, and I had no problem sharing some of what we had on our beach with them. I honestly was hoping I could use it as leverage to get them to work with us and trust us. You're watching two different tribes work together to come after us. And so any little thing that we could do to make someone happy and make them appreciate us and want to work with us come the merge, I was willing to do. What you guys didn't get to see out there was in the time when they had to choose James and Noelle going on the journey. Dwight asked Baca to choose Noelle. And so Baca sent Noelle on the journey. And so the next challenge, Dwight and Noelle helping Baca beat us in the challenge, was their way of saying, thank you for doing us a solid and sending Noelle. This is the way that we're paying you back. And I'm the type of person where it's Survivor, anything goes. I went through Gio's bag. So my thing is like anything that you're willing to do to get yourself information or ahead in the game is like fair game. I just didn't want Cody taking my machete. Like, we needed that machete. It was our lifeline in that game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
By the time of tribal council, we saw the paranoia before. How were you feeling when you sat down?
It was not a blindside to me by any means. I knew things were shifting. I went for a really long walk on the beach right before tribal council to kind of just clear my head and say goodbye to Cocoa Beach. If that was my last time on that island, I collected seashells and I just kind of calmed my thoughts. James and I had a saying out there whenever one of us were getting a little worked up and we needed to calm down, which was like, trust the process. Right. And so after all of the chaos and Ryan refusing to talk to me out there and me getting worked up, I kind of calmed down and said, if it's me tonight, it's me. And I had to decide whether I wanted to play my shot in the dark that night or not. In a tribe of 6, my vote is everything. I wasn't willing to give up my vote for a 1 in 6 shot. I've never seen the shot in the dark work before. Like, what makes me think that it was going to work on me? And I also wanted to prove to my tribe that like I was staying loyal after everything I had just put them through on that beach where they're constantly having to reassure me. The last thing I needed to do was either say, hey, not only do I not have a vote to go along with our plan because I don't trust you, from a selfish standpoint, like I wanted to be on the right side of the vote for every single tribal council. That was part of my gameplay. I wanted to be able to sit at the end and say I was on the right side of the vote for every single vote. And so it didn't match up with my gameplay. If I had played my shot in the dark, I wouldn't have been able to say that. So.